Hey guys, last act of Hamlet, Act 5. How is all this going to play out? Well, as you can see, I'm not in my room. I have gone across the hall because I don't want to spoil Act 5 for my beloved cohort members. I know their emotional existence is hanging on being able to be surprised by everything that happens in Act 5 of Hamlet. Correct, guys? Okay, that's what I thought. So here we go, and we start off Act 5, Scene 1, a churchyard. Enter. It says two clowns in your text. Those are gravediggers. They're calling them clowns because it's kind of comic. It's a kind of comic relief scene, but that's what's going on here. And as you can imagine, if we're in a graveyard and they're saying, "Is she to be buried in Christian burial that willfully seeks her own salvation?" Obviously, they're talking about the person who recently died and whether or not she's going to receive full Christian burial, because you know why. Here we go.
Is she to be buried in Christian burial that wilfully seeks her own salvation?
I tell thee she is, and therefore make her grave straight. The crowner hath sat on her and finds it Christian burial.
How can that be, unless she drowned herself in her own defence?
Why? 'Tis found so.
It must be so. Offendendo. It cannot be else. For here lies the point. If I drown myself wittingly, it argues an act. And an act hath three branches. It is to act, to do, and to perform. Ergo, she drowned herself wittingly.
Nay, but hear you, Goodman Delver.
Give me leave. Here lies the water. Good. Here stands the man. Good. If the man go to this water and drown himself, it is, willy-nilly, he goes. Mark you that, but if the water come to him and drown him, he drowns not himself. Ergo, he that is not guilty of his own death shortens not his own life.
But is this law?
Aye, marry it is. Crowner's quest law.
Will you have the truth on't? If this had not been a gentlewoman, she should have been buried out of Christian burial.
Why?
Okay, so there are some Christian burial rights she's receiving, maybe not all of them. And he's pointing out if she wasn't a gentlewoman, as in like an aristocrat, then she wouldn't even be receiving this.
There thou sayest. And the more pity that great folk should have countenance in this world to drown or hang themselves more than they're even Christian. Come, my spade. There is no ancient gentleman but gardeners, ditchers, and grave-makers. They hold up Adam's profession.
Was he a gentleman?
He was the first that ever bore arms.
Why, he had none.
What? Art a heathen? How dost thou understand the scripture? The scripture says Adam digged. Could he dig without arms? I'll put another question to thee. If thou answerest me not to the purpose, confess thyself.
Go to.
What is he that builds stronger than either the mason, the shipwright, or the carpenter?
There's a little riddle for you. What is he, as in what profession is he that builds stronger than the mason, the shipwright, or the carpenter? Now, why is he doing these goofy riddles and trying to act all clever and smart? He does sound pretty clever and smart, by the way, doesn't he? The first gravedigger, or clown as they call him. Well, this is a scene of what we call comic relief, right? It is all kinds of dark stuff is going on, and everything, as we know, in Act 5 is about to come to a head one way or another, right? So before this last blast of tragedy happens, we get a little comic relief, give the audience a little emotional rest before everything goes down however it does.
The gallows maker, eh? For that frame outlives 1,000 tenants.
I like thy wit well, in good faith.
Good guess.
The gallows does well, but how does it well? It does well to those that do ill. Now thou dost ill to say the gallows is built stronger than the church. Ergo, the gallows may do well to thee. Do it again. Come.
Who builds stronger than a mason, a shipwright, or a carpenter?
Aye, tell me that, and unyoke.
Marry, now I can tell.
Tut.
Oh, mass, I cannot tell.
Cudgel thy brains no more about it, for your dull ass will not mend his pace with beating. And when you are asked this question next, say a grave maker.
Ah.
Oh.
The houses that he makes last till doomsday. Go get thee the yawn. Fetch me a stoop of liquor.
Aye.
Fetch me a stoop of liquor. I love that. Now that you figured the joke out. Exit second clown. First clown digs and continues to sing. Now, in the meantime, Hamlet and Horatio are kind of wandering in, and they would be coming from Hamlet getting back, right? And finishing, maybe telling Horatio what has gone on and how he was able to get back with the whole pirate thing, right? But in the meantime,
In youth when I did love, methought it was very.
Has this fella no feeling of his business that he sings at grave-making?
Custom has...
something else we might want to keep in mind here is the huge dramatic irony that neither Horatio nor even Hamlet know whose grave this is or what has happened to Ophelia. So there's some kind of dark, dramatic irony going on here. Oh no.
Come most carefully upon your hour.
I'm going to pause the recording and try to recover my space. Well, that stinks. Back in a sec. Sorry, everybody. Picking back up on the top of page 103 with the first clown or gravedigger's lines, in youth when I did love, when he's singing to himself, and Hamlet and Horatio are walking up.
In youth when I did love, methought it was very.
Has this fella no feeling of his business that he sings at grave-making?
Custom hath made it in him a property of easiness.
'Tis e'en so, the hand of little employment hath the daintier sense. That skull had a tongue in it and could sing once. How the knave jowls it to the ground as if it were Cain's jawbone.
Skips
that
over
did
the song
first
lyrics
murder.
there.
It might be the pate of a politician which this ass now or offices. One that would circumvent God, might it not?
So Hamlet is contemplating what types of people the skulls that he's digging up, that are kind of coming up in the ground, might have belonged to, right? Everybody's got a skull.
It might, my lord.
Or of a courtier, which could say, Good morrow, sweet lord, how dost thou, good lord? This might be my lord such a one that praised my lord such a one's horse when he meant to beg it. Might it not?
Aye, my lord.
Why, e'en so. And now, my lady Worms, chapless, and knocked about the mazzard with a sexton's spade. Here's fine revolution, if we had the trick to see it. Did these bones cost no more the breeding but to play at loggats with 'em? Mine ache to think on't. There's another. Why might not that be the skull of a lawyer? Where be his quiddits now, his quillets, his cases, his tenures, and his tricks? Why does he suffer this rude knave now to knock him about the sconce with a dirty shovel, and will not tell him of his action of battery? This fella might be in time a great buyer of land, with his statutes, his recognizances, his fines, his double vouchers, his recoveries. Is this the fine of his fines and the recovery of his recoveries? To have his fine pate full of fine dirt. Will his vouchers vouch him no more of his purchases, and double ones too, than the length and breadth of a pair of indentures? The very conveyances of his lands will hardly lie in this box. And must the inheritor himself have no more, huh?
Not a job more, my lord.
Is not parchment made of sheepskins?
Aye, my lord, and of calfskins too.
They are sheep and calves that seek out assurance in that. I will speak to this fellow.
Okay, so Hamlet's continually seem to kind of contemplate, right, this idea of like all these skulls, they're all people, right? Everyone dies. I'm going to pause for just a sec here again. And move on.
Whose grave's this, sirrah?
Mine, sir.
Okay, now he's messing with him. He's saying it's mine, as in I'm digging it, right? But again, the dark stuff going on. We know that it's Ophelia's grave, and Hamlet has no idea that she's even dead.
I think it be thine indeed, for thou liest in't.
You lie out on it, sir, and therefore it is not yours. For my part, I do not lie in't, and yet 'tis mine.
Thou dost lie in't, to be in't and say 'tis thine. 'Tis for the dead, not for the quick, therefore thou liest.
'Tis a quick lie, sir. 'Twill away again from me to you.
What man dost thou dig it for?
For no man, sir.
What woman, then?
Do we have somebody who's more quick-witted and fast with the jokes and puns than Hamlet? Because this gravedigger seems like a pretty sharp guy, and Hamlet's getting a kick out of it, right? So all the people that Hamlet runs logical circles around because he's so smart and sarcastic and witty, this guy keeping up with him, right? All those puns with lie.
For none neither.
Who is to be buried in't?
One that was a woman, sir, but rest her soul, she's dead.
How absolute the knave is. We must speak by the card, or equivocation will undo us. By the Lord, Horatio, these 3 years I have taken note of it, the age is grown so picked that the toe of the peasant comes so near the heel of the courtier, he galls his gibe. How long hast thou been a grave maker?
Of all the days in the year, I came to it that day that our last King Hamlet, I came Fortinbras.
How long is that since?
Cannot you tell that? Every fool can tell that. It was the very day that young Hamlet was born. He that was mad and sent into England.
Aye, marry, why was he sent into England?
Okay, more dramatic irony here. Of course, we see that the gravedigger does not realize that he is indeed speaking to Hamlet, but he somehow knows that he was sent to England because he was mad.
Why? Because he was mad. He shall recover his wits there, or if he do not, it's no great matter there.
Why?
'Twill not be seen in him there. There the men are as mad as he.
How came he mad?
Very strangely, they say.
How strangely?
Faith, in with losing his wits.
Upon what ground?
Why, here, in Denmark.
That ground.
I've been sexton here, man and boy, 30 years.
How long will a man lie i' the earth ere he rot?
If he be not rotten before he die, as we have many pocky corpses nowadays that will scarce hold the laying in, he will last you some 8 year or 9 year. A tanner will last you 9 year.
Why he more than another?
Why, sir, his hide is so tan with his trade that he will keep out water a great while, and your water is a sore decayer of your wholesome dead body. Here's a skull now. This skull was lain in the earth 23 years.
Whose was it?
A wholesome mad fellow it was. Who do you think it was?
Nay, I know not.
A pestilence on him for a mad rogue. I poured a flagon of Rhenish on my head once. This same skull, sir, was Yorick's skull, the king's jester.
This?
Yeah.
Okay, so Hamlet takes the skull of the king's jester, Yorick, and that would have been like a king's jester was like someone who hung around the court, was basically like a live-in stand-up comedian, essentially, if you can imagine having that. And he might have been, you know, somewhat of like an uncle figure to Hamlet or something, right? That kind of kept him occupied and laughing. But the famous, absolutely iconic image of Hamlet is Hamlet holding a skull, you know, and looking at it. And that's whose skull it is, right? So he's contemplated how everyone ends up worm's meat, right? And now he's looking at the skull of someone who he actually knew.
In that.
Let me see. Alas, poor Yorick. I knew him, Horatio. A fellow of infinite jest, of most excellent fancy. He hath borne me on his back 1,000 times, and now how abhorred in my imagination it is. My gorge rises at it. Here hung those lips that I have kissed I know not how oft. Where be your jibes now, your gambols, your songs, your flashes of merriment that were wont to set the table on a roar? No one now to mock your own grinning, quite chop-fallen. Now get you to my lady's chamber, and tell her, let her paint an inch thick, to this favour she must come. Make her laugh at that. Prithee, Horatio, tell me one thing.
What's that, my lord?
Dost thou think Alexander looked to this fashion of the earth?
As in Alexander the Great, I guess.
E'en so.
And smelt so?
E'en so, my lord.
To what base uses we may return, Horatio. Why, may not imagination trace the noble dust of Alexander till he find it stopping a bunghole?
'Twere to consider too curiously to consider so.
No, faith, not a jot, but to follow him thither with modesty enough and likelihood to lead it, As thus, Alexander died, Alexander was buried. Alexander returneth into dust, the dust is earth, of earth we make loam, and why of that loam whereto he was converted might they not stop a beer barrel? Imperial Caesar, dead and turned to clay, might stop a hole to keep the wind away. Oh, that earth which kept the world in awe should patch a wall to expel the winter's flaw. But soft, aside. Here comes the king, the queen, the courtiers.
Okay, so Hamlet finishes his thoughts about mortality there, right? And basically how we all end up, not just worm speed, but dirt, right? It's a full cycle of life, no matter who you are, the highest king down to the lowliest peasant, your lawyer, Alexander the Great, or in this case, eventually him, right? But what are you going to do in the meantime? Okay, enter priests in procession, the corpse of Ophelia, Laertes, mourners following, king and queen in their train. So Hamlet and Horatio are like off to the side here. Are they going to reveal themselves? Are they going to find out what's going on? If they hang around, eventually they're going to figure out whose funeral this is, and that's going to be somewhat of a shock to both of them, obviously, mostly to Hamlet.
Who is it that they follow, and with such maimed rites? For this doth betoken the corpse they follow did with desperate hand fordo it own life. 'Twas of some estate. Couch we a while and mark.
What ceremony else?
That is Laertes, a very noble youth. Mark.
What ceremony else?
Laertes is saying, is that all you're going to do, priest? Is that it?
Obsequies have been as far enlarged as we have warrantized. Her death was doubtful, and but that great command o'ersways the order, she should in ground unsanctified have lodged till the last trumpet. For charitable prayers, shards, flints, and pebbles should be thrown on her. Yet here she is allowed her virgin rites, her maiden struments, and the bringing home of bell and burial. Must then no more be done? No more be done! We should profane the service of the dead to sing sage requiem and such rest to her as to peace-parted souls. Lay her in the earth, and from her fair and unpolluted flesh may violets spring. I tell thee, churlish priest, ministering angel shall my sister be when thou liest howling.
What? The fair Ophelia?
Okay, so that, remember, Hamlet is still hiding off to the side, so that's really more like an aside, but between him and Horatio. So that's he's got the moment of realization there that he's realizing Ophelia is dead.
Sweets to the sweet, farewell. I hope thou shouldst have been my Hamlet's wife. I thought thy bride bed to have decked, sweet maiden, and not to have strewed thy grave.
Oh, treble woe! Fall 10 times treble on that cursed head, whose wicked deed thy most ingenious sense deprived thee of. Hold off the earth a while, till I have caught her once more in mine arms.
Oh boy. Leaps into the grave.
Pile your dust upon the quick and dead, till of this flat a mountain you have made toward top of Pelion, or the skyish head of blue Olympus.
What is he whose grief bears such an emphasis, whose phrase of sorrow conjures the wandering stars and makes them stand like wonder-wounded hearers? This is I, Hamlet the Dane.
I love that line. Okay, so Laertes is freaking out, literally jumps into the grave to hold his dead sister one more time. Things are always a little bit weird with him, I thought, too. And then Hamlet just can't stand it and walks out in the middle of this funeral. Nobody even knows he's there. And saying, who is this whose grief bears such an emphasis, you know, that is going to grieve as much as I am? Well, Hamlet, it's her freaking brother. Of course he's going to show a lot of grief, right? But he can't stand it. He knows that not everybody knows how much that he loved Ophelia, right? Because that was never able to be wholly realized, right? It got cut off in its prime. This is I, Hamlet the Dane. I loved her the most. Now, this is not heading in a good direction, is it? They are fighting in the grave over Ophelia's dead body.
Thou prayest not well. I prithee take thy fingers from my throat, for though I am not splenitive and rash, Yet have I in me something dangerous, which let thy wiseness fear. Away thy hand, pluck them asunder!
My lord, be quiet! Why, I will fight with him upon this theme until my eyelids will no longer wag.
Oh, my son, what theme?
I loved Ophelia. 40,000 brothers could not with all their quantity of love make up my sum. What wilt thou do for her?
Oh, he is mad, Laertes!
For love of God, forbear him.
Swoon, show me what thou do. Would weep, would fight, would fast, would tear thyself, would drink up Isel, eat a crocodile. I'll do it. Dost thou come here to whine, to outface me with leaping in her grave? Be buried quick with her, and so will I. And if thou prate of mountains, let them throw millions of acres on us, till our ground, singeing his pate against the burning zone, make Ossa like a wart. Nay, and out mouth, I'll rant as well as thou.
Okay, so he's not going to be outfaced by her brother showing his grief, and he's listing all these like hyperboles. But what do you do? You need a crocodile to show how much he grieves her.
This is mere madness, and thus a while the fit will work on him. Anon as patient as the female dove, when that her golden couplets are disclosed, his silence will sit drooping.
Hear you, sir. What is the reason that you use me thus? I loved you ever, but it is no matter. Let Hercules himself do what he may. The cat will mew, and dog will have his day.
Every dog will have his day. That sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it?
I pray you, good Horatio, wait upon him.
Yes, my lord.
Laertes, strengthen your patience in our last night's speech. We'll put the matter to the present push. Good Gertrude, set some watch over your son. This grave shall have a living monument. An hour of quiet shortly shall we see. Till then, impatience our proceeding be.
Okay, remember, Laertes, we've got a plan for this, right? He knew he was coming back now that he has. And Laertes is even more incensed at Hamlet than he was before, right? Because of this funeral stuff and how he freaked out there. It wasn't enough that he'd already killed his dad. So if you're Laertes, it's kind of understandable that you'd be infuriated with Hamlet, right? Now, Hamlet's maybe not seeing that as much because, you know, he's just trying to get done what he's trying to do, no matter what, right? But, you know, is Laertes a villain here? I don't know. It's kind of understandable how he feels, right? Okay, that is the end of Act 5, Scene 1, and there is only one other scene. It's about the same time length. So I will stop here and see you soon.